Let's keep breaking down the positional rankings. This time, we'll talk about shortstop for 2023 fantasy baseball. At number 10, Tim Anderson of the Chicago White Sox. Anderson arguably could be higher based on how he performs. I mean, he's had an expected batting average among the league leaders in 3 of the last 4 seasons. That mark was 302 last year, 4th best among all qualified hitters. But here's the problem. Can't guarantee that he'll be on the field throughout the whole year. He's missed 174 total games just in the last 4 years. Everything you'd want is there: average, speed, power, and a good spot in a productive lineup. Should score plenty of runs. Just needs to stay healthy. He will turn 30 this season, but we haven't seen any sign of him slowing down. Speed is still good. In fact, he wasn't caught stealing a single time last year. Can't rank him too much higher because of the injury history. Number 9, a guy that I feel like I planted my flag on a long time ago, and a lot of my fantasy teams are going to sink or swim with Wander Franco of the Tampa Bay Rays. We know the pedigree, one of the top prospects overall a couple of years ago, lit up the minor leagues with that ridiculous hitting streak. And talk about XBA, 96th percentile last year, plate discipline that every hitter can be jealous of, and then 99th percentile for strikeout rate. He will make contact, he will get on base a lot. But like Anderson, here's the question: the health. Last year missed half the season, and now in spring he has a sore right quadriceps. This might be kind of a trend for him, but seems like he'll be fine for opening day. Not going to worry too much just yet. The on-base skills are there. Batting average could be among the best in the majors. He's got enough both power and speed to help you out in every category. So I'm taking the chance. I'm not putting him among the elites in terms of rankings right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if he finishes top 5 at this position, which is filled with fantasy studs. At number 8, Xander Bogaerts, now with San Diego. It's a guy who's been so consistent and so dependable year after year. Been among the leaders in batting average 7 of the last 8 seasons. Now, moving from Boston to San Diego, typically you wouldn't think that would work in a hitter's favor. But with the universal DH now, AL, NL doesn't really matter. And based on how Boston looked last year and how San Diego looks this year, this is an improvement for him. He is going to be leading off, and he's hitting in front of Juan Soto, Manny Machado, and eventually Fernando Tatis Jr. I'd say that's an upgrade. The only thing Bogaerts won't get you really at this position is speed. The last time he stole more than 8 bases in a season was 2017. But when the average is that good and the runs scored could be, again, among the best in the majors, I think you'll take that offset. Sliding in at 7 is Marcus Semien of the Rangers. Not going to spend a whole lot of time on him here because, well, he's also qualified at second base, and that's where he should probably slot. So if you check out that video, you can see my full breakdown and where he ranks among second basemen. Next, we have Frankie Lindor of the Mets. Lindor's game has a lot in common with Semien, and by that I mean they are 5 category studs. Other key here, and something that really deserves more attention from the fantasy community, is these guys who put up elite plate appearance totals. The league leader in the majors last year in plate appearances was Marcus Semien at 724. Lindor was not far behind, ranking 4th overall, 706. That's how you rack up counting stats, and having the guy that's out there for the entire season, you never have to sub for. That's actually a really nice asset to have. Lindor's home run totals aren't quite as high as they were a few years ago in Cleveland, but he did notch a career high 107 RBIs. This Mets lineup is loaded, and so he should have no problem getting close to that total again. At number 5, I'm putting Corey Seager of the Texas Rangers. Now you could look at the fact that Seager, unlike the 2 guys I just mentioned and some other players on this list, he isn't going to get you a lot of stolen bases either. But man, I will tell you, I'm so in love with his profile. I think that he actually could make a run for AL MVP. His power is as good as almost anybody on this list in the shortstop position. The batting average, again, could be the best of the bunch. RBI totals, everything will fall into place. I'll take the fact that he might not steal too many bases for the fact I think he's going to be the best at shortstop in nearly every category. That's how highly I think of him. The shift being banned, he vastly underperformed his expected stats last year, especially in batting average. Should have been 40 points higher, and now, without the shift, he could easily hit over 300, driving over 100 runs, 30 plus home runs. That's already something he's done in Texas. Not much else you could ask for. But at 4, I will put Bobby Witt Jr. one spot ahead. I talked about him in detail at third base because even though that might not be where he winds up playing most of the season, that's where he qualifies in fantasy leagues. That's where you definitely want to put him because third base compared to shortstop, so much harder to get a stud like him, especially someone who can steal 20 or 30 plus bases. And one of the biggest questions of this coming season is how do you value Fernando Tatis Jr.? It's hard to say because you know the ceiling is that he is literally the best player in fantasy. The floor is last year where he did not play a single game. We know the issues. First of all, not going to even play until at least April 20th due to that suspension that hasn't finished yet. And then shoulder and elbow issues that have cost him a ton of games already in his young career. If we can be sure that he's past that, won't have lingering issues, and will stay on the field for most of the season, he could be the number one player at not just this position, but any position. But you have to knock him down at least a little bit because of the risk. At number 2, Bo Bichette in Toronto. Now, Bichette was a popular first-round pick last year in fantasy and someone who seemed like he was on the verge of taking it to the next level and becoming a full-fledged superstar. Didn't quite happen. In fact, a lot of people were disappointed by his final output. He scored 30 fewer runs than he did in 2021. His stolen base total cut in half from 25 down to 13. No injuries to blame. In fact, one of the good things is the fact that he played almost every game the entire season for the second straight season. So what happened? Is there a regression? Were we too high on him in the first place? The answer is no, probably not. All the peripherals suggest that he was performing basically at the same level. The one area you might be concerned is the fact that in the stolen base category, he ran about as much, but he was caught 8 times and successful 13 times. The run total dipping might be a result of the fact that, well, he was thrown out several times trying to steal and didn't get to second base as often. And also, that team was without Marcus Semien last year. Maybe not quite as successful. Vlad Guerrero didn't have quite as good a year. A couple of small things here and there. All told, Toronto still has a great offense. Bichette is still a great player. And so maybe he'll get back to 21 totals. But even if he just performs like he did last year, he's still one of the best and most reliable options at this position. But at number 1, you know it has to be Trey effing Turner. What more do we need to say about Turner? You watched him in the World Baseball Classic almost lead the U.S. to a championship there. A guy who always shows up in the year-end leaderboard in batting average, stolen bases, runs scored, and will get you at least 20 home runs. Last year, career high with 100 RBIs for the first time. Turner is the only shortstop that I mentioned in my Who Should Be Number 1 video early this offseason as far as being in play for the number 1 overall pick in fantasy. He still is. He could still be the top guy, and he's definitely the top shortstop. If you didn't catch my rankings of the top 10 third basemen for this year, check it out right here.